Well, let's go back to that situation in South Sudan. The peace agreement hanging by a thread and tens of thousands of people forced to flee renewed fighting. Let's go back to Suliman Baldo, Sudanese political analyst who joins us from New Jersey in the United States. Good to have you with us.
Thank you for having me.
A lot of, increasingly, both sides, both Machar's supporters and Salva Kiir's supporters are saying, there is no peace agreement. And there is a criticism that guarantors of the peace deal, like Ethiopia and Uganda, aren't doing anything while it crumbles. What's your assessment?
There is no peace agreement because of lack of political will in the ruling class in South Sudan to stand by peace and implement their obligation under the peace agreement. The international community, the regional and neighboring countries have done a great effort to persuade them to accept this agreement. It's not a perfect one, but both President Kiir and his Vice President Riek Machar have said the agreement was imposed on them, and therefore there was a lot of bad will to uphold it from both sides. President Kiir appeared to have opted to choose among the armed opposition those members who are likely to support him, and therefore he has appointed Tabandeng as first vice president and now ministers, half a dozen ministers, who are loyal to Tabandeng and not to Riek Machar.
But isn't resolving this situation of the utmost importance? Because there's now been some 2 years of ethnic fighting in South Sudan. I mean, surely this is affecting wider stability across East Africa.
It's affecting first and foremost the population of South Sudan, who never had a break from continuous assault, first during 23 years of civil war within the Greater Sudan, and since the transitional period that started in 2005 under the leadership of the Sudan People Liberation Movement, which waged that war against the central government. And instead of trying to give peace dividends to the population of South Sudan, I really find this leadership totally responsible for the failure to give that population a break and some chance at stability, peace, and prosperity that the resources of the country qualified it for. And therefore, it's the responsibility foremost and first of this leadership.
Indeed. In fact, the United Nations says close to 5 million people are going hungry in South Sudan, and 60,000 people have fled just in the last 3 weeks alone. And they are saying that the situation looks as though it's going to get a lot worse before it gets better.
I have seen the statement from the United Nations Office of Humanitarian Affairs, and it is indeed very alarming. There are reports of severe malnutrition affecting 7 states of the 10 states of South Sudan. Reports of outbreaks of cholera announced by the Ministry of Health in South Sudan in several counties, in Juba, the capital. Reports of inability of the population to cope with the inflation of basic food commodities and the lack of necessary supplies for just biological survival. On top of that, total impunity for fighters on both sides as they attack humanitarian supplies. This happened, the latest incident was the attack on WFP food, relief food supplies reserves in Juba, and the soldiers not being held accountable for that. And therefore, the population is really victim of all this.
It is a very bleak situation. Suliman, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Suliman Baldo from New Jersey in the US there.